Yeah, truth told, I've been busy lately. Yeah, I got a new job, still doing Rust development, but more about that another time. My personal projects haven't seen much development lately, but I have done one thing. I've taken the roguelike game that I've been developing and hosted it on a website. You can check it out here at shane'stimetunnel.com. So I was following the tutorial, committing my code and everything, and instead of just leaving my code where code goes to die on GitHub, I've decided to post it to public scrutiny and host it on, shane'stimetunnel.com. Yeah, and I'm gonna leave it up there, and I'm gonna let it be a thing that I'm gonna keep updating as much as I can. So far, I've just been following the tutorial. There's like an example of how to throw it into WebAssembly, and I decided to take it a step further and then throw that online. Once things start to get a bit more complicated and we can stretch this out, we'll see how this hosting goes. I don't know how much traffic this can handle. It's hosted on a pretty small instance, but I'm going to talk about the ins and outs of how I've hosted it in just a moment. So the first thing was to get something that actually runs in the browser. And this was fairly trivial because the tutorial includes a little excerpt about how to actually throw in some WebAssembly onto this roguelike. So that was pretty straightforward. Just throw in some extra code and it was running locally. The next step really was to actually figure out a hosting platform to actually put this code onto. So I want the delivery of this to be as clean as possible. And so that's why I'm following through with this, because I don't want it just sitting on GitHub where only maybe someone that's into Rust or someone who's a little bit nerdy that can actually figure out how this thing works. I want it to be accessible to everyone. Anyways, I had to decide a hosting platform. So we've got Google Cloud, we've got Azure, we've got AWS, and I do have some experience with AWS. And these big server providers, they're really great. They're probably uncomparable, but we're just hosting this little thing locally, and a lot of those options are just way too expensive, way too over-engineered and too complicated. Not even complicated, but just like unnecessary, really. I wanted something simple, something cheap, and so I went with Scaleway. These guys provide like little instances that run for I think I'm charged something around €7 to €10 a month. But yeah, it's pretty cheap to just run a small instance there. Now, I don't know how much it can handle. The memory and the CPU is pretty crappy, but I was able to get an Ubuntu instance up pretty quick, so I decided to go with them. They offer all the same kind of stuff I would have got on AWS as well, but with a nice, simple GUI to use as well. And once you get your SSH set up, it's all the same thing anyways. At some stage I may have to scale up the instance, and at that point I'll consider other options. But I've made it quite easy for myself because I containerize everything. So I got all the code together, all the WebAssembly, blah blah blah. I've wrote a little Python script to help me set up a bit of a server. And yeah, I basically put everything into a container on this Ubuntu instance. That was all the code that we needed to run. So great, we have it running on our instance. We can, check out the IP and see it running there. But the next thing was I wanted to actually have this, over HTTPS and have it a little bit more legitimate than just being a random IP address on the internet. So I went to GoDaddy, which is, as I've learned, is probably not the best provider of domain names, but whatever. Just started looking up different domain names, and at the moment it's kind of like you can't get any basic domain names anymore. So I went with shane'stimetunnel.com, whatever. Went in, changed the records, got it all set up, and now we just need a proxy on our Docker container. So we got a bit of Docker Compose going on there. So we have our proxy, and we have our actual code and server running, and the proxy will, be our interface for the wider world. Proxy I went with was Traffic, mostly because I have just a little bit of experience with it already. So yeah, there is Nginx, but I don't know, Traffic just seems cool, the cool new toy to use, so yeah, why not go with that? I'm not trying to do anything crazy anyway, and it was really simple to set up. They have like a whole documentation and everything, so within an hour or two you can have all that running. Yeah, and there you go. And then I tested it out, and within a few hours it was all set up, all working. It took me a few days, but only because I'd have like half an hour here, half an hour there to actually work on this. But at the end of the day, it didn't take me very long to get this all set up. And I was able to do some real-life testing by just throwing the link to some friends and seeing if it worked for them, and it worked perfectly. There's some bugs in the actual game and certain things won't work in WebAssembly as they will locally. Like I know WebAssembly is single threaded, and on the web server, and saving files and loading saved files might get a little bit tricky if I want to implement that. So there's a couple of things to iron out, but in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty successful and it runs really smooth. Oh yeah, and the other thing is like it doesn't give you the full scale. It was designed for terminals, and now I've gone and thrown it on the web, and so now you get this little game in the corner that you have to zoom in on. So I'm gonna have to make it like dynamically sized, and also there's no mobile support. So if you try to open this on your phone, it'll open, it'll load, but the controls are all mapped to a keyboard. So unless you have a keyboard on your phone, it's probably not gonna work. Yeah, and that's where we're at. I'm pretty happy with it. This is just a quick update. You guys can all check it out, mess around with it. It's probably, once I put this video out, going to be like overloaded with a load of people like trying to try it out, or hopefully not, but maybe some people trying to hack it too. Please don't do that. That's another reason. I will have the code open source. I'll be throwing this all onto my GitHub at some stage. At the moment, I'm just going to hold off, just double check it, make sure I haven't anything stupid in there, because yeah, the last thing I want is someone being figuring out how to get around the security. And of course, security through obfusifying things is not the way to go, but I just want to double check it before I throw it online. And I don't know, maybe I'll just throw it online anyways. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I went with an Ubuntu instance. You're probably wondering, like, why Ubuntu? It was basically because, yeah, I use Ubuntu every day. It's straightforward. I could have went with CentOS, which is meant to be pretty good for this kind of thing, but I just couldn't be bothered learning which libraries I need and all the commands I need to use for CentOS. Ubuntu does the job. Again, this isn't some super duper project. It's like a little game being hosted locally, and I just want to grow it out organically. So yeah, the next step will be CI/CD. So I'm gonna have to write some pipelines and stuff, set up a key and get everything going, push to the server, blah blah blah. Pretty straightforward stuff as well. I should have that done within a week or two at most. And then from there we can move on through the tutorial. I think I'm like almost halfway through the actual Rust tutorial. Again, check that out by Herbert Wolverson. Great tutorial. Once we get through the tutorial, I want to start adding like a load of features. I have like in my mind where I want this to go slightly. Like I'm thinking a sort of civilization RPG sort of thing, but that's gonna take a couple of years. Like it's gonna take me, I'd say, another 3 months to find the time to actually finish the actual tutorial. And then once I get through that, I will have to then start like figuring out how the hell do I add features to this thing without breaking it. And then once I've gotten there, it'll probably take me a few months to actually code everything that I want to add. So yeah, you're looking at least a year and a half. And even then, you want to add some multiplayer support, maybe, you know, increase server size in case interest starts to creep in from other people, and just like add buffer time, because I mean, I do have a full-time job. This is just a fun side project that I'm messing around with. So, you know, as well, if anyone wants to contribute to this, feel free. But yeah, there's your update. There's how to do it. You guys can do it as well with your own code, with your own games. It'd be cool to see if anyone else is trying this kind of thing as well. Please share. And I'd like to see different Rust projects. All right, peace out.